fresh.
And the beats had soul.
MCs had class.
The rock chants that go,
Yes, yes, y'all.
and it don't stop.
From the bottom
All the way up
to the top.
we're here. In case you forgot, we're double trouble,
Bubbling high.
Hey yo, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Ready, rock steady.
Definitely.
Tyler Gibney, designer, Heavyweight Production House.
Right through the end of the week. Two fly brothers with a
And if there's gonna be a wicked 3D abstract Maple Leaf, there should maybe also be like little fleur-de-lis flying around it.
I played in a band for a long time, so I was always heavily influenced by music. And then when I decided to go to art school, you know, for my band, I was always doing my like big posters and things like that.
school needs it. Pop artists taking no
Gene Pendon, painter, Heavyweight Production House. My father was a painter and a calligrapher, and I don't really remember it when I didn't draw.
What color is that? Sexy? More sexy. Black is always sexy.
Once upon a time,
real long ago.
when you went to the
And
jam.
enjoyed the show.
Dan Bowler, painter, graphic artist, heavyweight art installation.
Yes, yes, y'all.
And it don't stop.
From the bottom
All the way up
to the top.
Graffiti and I had just broken up, and pretty emotional. When I met live painting, we got along really well. You know, we had a certain kind of chemistry. We decided to just go with it, and we're still going strong.
Heavyweight came together in 1998 in Montreal, Canada, after I had a loft space, and then I met with these guys, saw the talent, and asked them to come with me and start a collective.
It was just, all of us were just working on our own, and we all had some common interests, and so we decided to get together and try to do something fun with it, and have some parties, and pay rent in the studio, and do some independent work.
So we just shared resources and kind of shared, you know, like a spirit for creating something. And something new that really didn't exist in the city.
Back in Montreal, I was working along with music promoters doing, you know, graphic design and flyers, everything like that, posters. And originally, Victor Schiffman was producing an event for the Jazz Festival, Montreal Jazz Festival, and he was the DJ, and they wanted some sort of visual element. So I proposed it to Victor that we get in there and paint, but instead of it being, before a lot of the painting, the compositions were really loose and would just be all over the place. My vision with it was to have a more concise piece, so it looked like a whole piece. So we came up with a little idea, like a composition, and then everyone worked on certain sections of the piece. And right from the get-go, it just came together perfect. Like, it was one of those things that, yes, it was planned out, but also it just happened. And so we did it for 8 days straight.
And it took off. We did a really good job, and people responded. And so it just evolved from there.
The live painting really thrust us into, you know, having to perform in front of, you know, live audiences, and through that, over and over, we developed a technique and a process and a certain dynamic.
We all know our strengths and weaknesses, and we work, you know, like a band. We would take, you know, certain elements from old compositions, Malik Sibide, or, you know, even Muhammad Ali, something like that, and kind of recontextualize them, like same as hip-hop sampling.
There's a dialogue that's between us that's creative. We know each other's moves and how we like to think in terms of, you know, creating images.
There is a cohesive, and our pieces look very much like they're created by one as opposed to three separate entities. The idea behind it was to take music and try and, you know, do that visually in the same scenario, like a jazz standard or something, where there's an idea, there's an initial composition behind it, but then we all got to, you know, take that to the next level and improvise, and then feeding off the live energy.
this is what musicians must feel on stage. They get energy fed to them from the crowd, and that feeds the work that you're doing. The creative process. Like, it's a real thing. It works, and I never experienced that before, and so it's enjoyable, and it makes the work better, I think.
The music is energy, and it's part of the room, and it's part of what keeps us from, working spontaneously and not second guessing our brush strokes. And you compress the experience of painting. You compress the time and compress the energy so that you're just expressing for the moment.
Working with Gene and Dan for so long, like watching them perform, it's almost like a sense of meditation where they almost go into a state where Gene just gets into like kind of trance and just goes with it, and Dan just he's just focused on what he has to do, and I think people enjoy watching that process, and I enjoy watching that process.
Doing it live in front of people, the audience will kind of invest in the creation when they watch, when they see and experience the process in front of them. I get the sense that a lot of them, they're grateful for actually seeing how a painting came together and somehow invest in the experience.
The reason why we're doing a show called Political Minded is because it's hard not to be right now. Whether or not you're an American, it doesn't matter where you live in the world, it's impossible to be unaware or to have no opinion on what's happening right now politically in the world.
Like this was a couple of years ago, the discussions just went more and more into this direction of political nature. And so we responded to it and looked for an outlet.
As artists, we express ourselves. We express what's in our minds and in our thoughts, and right now that's what's in there, and so it's coming out. It's streaming out through our pores.
And also we wanted to continue, progress, take on different challenges. But we're kind of taking over these spots like this was, abandoned storefront here. And, we take it over, we sleep here for 4 days, paint our asses off, and then have an opening. It's open for 4 days, and then it's destroyed. That kind of idea of more the process as opposed to the sense of ownership. It's more about the knowing it's not a tangible thing that anyone can own. It's more just like
being there.
Being there.
You gotta be there.
And it being a cultural experience.
You got to be part of the discussion.
Yeah. I think we just have a good rapport with each other that allows us to stay together, even though now we live in a separate city.
Heavyweight still exists as as the name that we work collectively under. We can pursue our own thing.
We're all working all the time, and then when we come together, we sort of bring that, that knowledge, that new knowledge together, and then we get together as the three of us, and then when it's the three of us, we think differently and challenge each other and approach problems differently.
It's allowed us to grow independently as artists and also bring more when collectively we get together.
And now there's nothing that really stops us. Like distance doesn't stop us.
Duke, I'm liking it. I think it's gonna work. Programmed it using the computer, using like a drum programming, and then I figured out how to transcribe it to a circle, and I just did it visually. I just gridded out a circle and then just mapped out a map of like 2 measures, which is what all this is. If you notice, the bass drums are all going boom, 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 but the big one is getting turned off every now and then, but it does it differently every time. So it emphasizes, but it's like a heartbeat. It fluctuates. It's never like the same thing coming in. Oh yeah. I've been working on this really hard for over a year. I don't care if it's the hallway. Put it in the basement, you know what I mean? Just let people see this shit. Scratching right now is actually hooked up into this space in between these 2 holes. So as this paper drifts to the left or to the right, it allows that space in between to sort of capture one of the notes to the left or the right of it. The main ingredient is air. It's bellows supplied by a vacuum pump and a release valve. Each hole sort of releases the release valve and allows suction to happen in the bellows. And then when the bellows close, the idea is like a painting. A painting is a drum. It's a membrane stretched over a frame. I just sort of ran with that idea. I dig all the little imperfections, And this is full of them. It's like I don't know when I'm going to stop calling this piece a work in progress, because it's got a long way to go. But I hope it's never finished or perfect.
Ain't no time for hesitation. Take your.
Idea from sort of the central part of my show that I'm doing in September is driven from turntables. The tree will sort of function as a table for the turntable, and the rings of a tree are like the grooves of a record. So the turntable will be sort of coming out of the rings of the center of the tree, and then the little platter, like the slip mat, will have some sort of reference to like the rings of the tree, and then there'll be clear vinyl on top of that. I love city trees, like, cause the roots always look different to me than they do out in the country. They're kind of like confined by the cobblestones and concrete around them. This shit's just got some magic to it, man. It just came together. I knew it needed like a plate on the front of it to house all the gear. What I wanted to do was expensive. This is official. The gear is not Radio Shack. I want it to be like a radio, It's LL. These knobs I found on the street on an old homemade stereo system that this dude made that had its own label. And it said, redesigned by Gus, like tweeters by Gus, and it was like G-U-S-S, it was like some fucking, some fucking Myrtle Street, Brooklyn sound system from the 70s, that was like sitting in somebody's basement for like 30 years and then found its way to the sidewalk just as I'm doing this, and I was like, I'm housing those knobs. I like the natural tones of these things almost better. These aren't tuned in any way. They're just found. It's like a found object. Okay, here's this one. You can scratch it. That's why I did it. Well, it's like kind of like what's going on in the world right now. You know, it's like I said, it's like when Tom and Jerry smell something burning in the kitchen. You know, and you got that smoke cloud goes through the screen, and they're all like, that's really what this is. You know, but I'm not talking about one thing. You know, it's just these are the things that like you can't help but hear because they're in the paper every day. You know, I don't even like try and involve myself in anything. It's too heavily political, but how can you help it? You know, it's like, how can you paint anything else and be honest? You know, it's like, you have to, this is what's happening, man. You know, just tapping into it.
Ryan McGinnis, and we're in my studio in Chinatown, and I had coffee for breakfast and maybe a donut. Infinity, yeah. Worlds within worlds, infinity. That was the idea. Universal symbols. A visual language. Words. Those words strung together make sentences. Sentences to form paragraphs. And what I'm trying to do is use that in an art context. One of the things I'm trying to do with my work is use a visual language that has historically resided in the realm of design and the kind of imagery that you would not normally attribute an author to. These kind of anonymous, clean forms. The simplest example is like the bathroom. You know, kind of standardized universal bathroom icons. It's a man and a woman, and they're so much a part of our visual vocabulary and culture now that they don't symbolize man and woman anymore, nor do they really symbolize bathroom anymore. But they're just they're objects and forms in and of themselves. The symbols are emptied, at the very least, of their original meaning and context, of course, because pulling things out or even like redrawing and creating new things in that same kind of anonymous, kind of authoritative form. which is something I've always just been drawn towards and actually chose to study and then practice. There's an exhibition coming up in Paris, and the paintings ship out next week. So that's why we're working in 2 shifts. Working throughout the night. Get these things done. Process is extremely important to me, not only in when the paintings start to develop and grow, but also beforehand. There's a real sketch refinement process that goes into those. So there's really kind of 2 kind of bigger picture processes. So let's start out as just kind of general ideas for the composition thing, like 2 parts growing and meeting, or kind of a pile, or more like a pyramid, or just a circle. So once we kind of put down the final color, like you can see this one in the front. Got a little more refined once the color was laid down. And that's the evolution. That's kind of, you can almost reverse engineer it. So that's an example of one and a little more direction from the beginning. A little more straightforward. And there's another kind of process, and that's a process that's been developing, but I've kind of gotten a better handle on within the past couple of years as I've settled into certain kind of paints and certain kind of finishing process. The polyurethane coating I use is a kind of a UV protective coating as well. And that's a concern of mine. So all those kind of craft issues are part of the process. The squeegee is my brush, and the pulp is the stroke. A lot of people who help me out who say they want to learn how to silk screen. This is not how you silk screen at all. I don't use hinges. I'm not concerned with registration. Sometimes I'll mix colors actually on the screen. This is not how you do it. And that's all a very conscious effort, and that's all after having done it the right way. And this is a cliche. You gotta learn the rules before you can break them, and that's definitely something I've gone through, and it just kind of evolved to kind of a free form process based more on intuition. It's a little more fluid, and like you see, I kind of go with the mistakes, and it's more like a traditional painting process with like the abstract expressionists, where they'll make a mark and then respond to that mark, and it builds and builds, as opposed to it all being kind of planned out. So there is a constant dialogue between me and these surfaces going on. up playing soccer. It's always been a big part of my life. Still play 2 days a week, 8:30 in the morning. Just needed a soccer ball, so I made one. So I also make shirts, bags, skateboards, books. And what I like to do is make a whole bunch of different kinds of things. First and foremost because I simply like making those things. And secondly because I like making things that exist on a range of price points. From one-of-a-kind, more expensive paintings and installations to mass-produced objects. I think making art has a lot to do with having faith. And a lot of these paintings we're talking about mistakes before, just kind of going with the mistake and having faith that a better solution will emerge, or you just kind of keep at it and keep working on the painting until it's done, and you just know when it's done. But to have that kind of foresight and belief that the real work will kind of come to fruition can be scary, but I think ultimately it's worth it.
My name's Jose Parla. People know me as Ease, and this is my studio in downtown Brooklyn. I'll show you my view. I got the Empire State Building to give me inspiration for the original New York City flavor. Yeah, one of the inspirations that I get is just seeing things being built up, seeing the grandiosity of things in the city. No, my brother gave me that name Ease, and I pretty much kept it. My brother was probably like the most influential, not just in being, a writer, but just like as a big brother.
And what did your brother write?
Faz, F-A-Z, and he put an ism in the end, so it's Fazism. Grand Wizard Fazism. We bounced off each other. Like my artwork became, more about being something that was like hard and in front of your face, something real. This stuff was more like fantasy, but it was directly connected because of the layers that we chose. He took it into films and started painting on actual like 8mm and 60mm film, and creating this like totally abstract films that when they moved, they were like motion paintings. And I saw that, and I saw the potential for my paintings to become a lot more involved with the layers and making the history deeper. My specification is dealing with like wall surfaces in the city. And so it's like when you grew up writing and stuff like that, most of the pieces that you've done or just signatures around the city, they either disappear because it gets buffed or the sun washes us out. So it's gone. It's really not permanent. The only way to document it was really through photo. And so my interest as a painter never really went away, and I wanted to document things that were like real to me. So I started to do paintings that resemble walls from scratch. So they start off with nothing, and I just build up the layers and build up the layers. And I practiced enough to get all of the techniques right so that they really look like really old walls. Not just with signatures, but like the textures and the layers and like how old it looks and deterioration and finding beauty in those type of deterioration. And so therefore I thought of my paintings as being like these segmented realities. When I say segmented reality, it's kind of saying something about the neighborhood of where it is and the psychology of that neighborhood. Like one specific painting that comes to mind is this piece I have here. It's called Flagler Street, and that's a street in Miami, my hometown. And this piece resembles Miami in colors. Like you got half of a chunk of a piece that was there with the pinks and purples, and then you got like hand styles that were written in turquoise and the baby blues. And so just in feeling alone, it reminds me of like what I saw growing up in Miami. The textures and stuff, this piece is built up of a lot of different things like paper and cement and different mixed media. And then I specifically concentrate on this little thing here to show that Miami is a place where people, you know, it's Latin America down there. So learn Spanish with the little paper where you pull off the telephones at the bottom to get your private lessons in Spanish. So this is like, each piece kind of talks about the neighborhood and the psychology of a neighborhood. These resonate like the feeling that you can get from being in certain areas that have been marked, you know, by writers a lot. And usually writers used to love or still love hanging out in places that are like kind of desolate and a bit destroyed, because there's a certain beauty in that. I'm really tapping into, like, you know, my old memories in a sense of like paying homage to old writers that I used to hang out with. I wouldn't say I mastered everyone's style, but I'm pretty good at, like, if they were a huge influence to me, you know, so that means a long time ago I practiced in the sense that they influenced me in. You know, like signing other people's names in their style. Remembering how they wrote and kind of imitating how they wrote and giving them the light. So either they're not around or they passed away, or they're still around and then I invite them to be part of it. I like to bring the outside hand to give it more authenticity to the wall. Sometimes having nothing to do with writing at all, but just standing somewhere and finding like a really old wall that's deteriorated, finding beauty in that, you know? And so that's like a personal memory, something that gave me inspiration, you know? Like something like this. This reminds me of like having seen a wall in a subway station that I really liked. This piece is called Pirate Station. And the inspiration for it was like the abandoned train stations in the tunnels, how they're just like super dark, but then they'll have a spotlight from one of the old light bulbs that's sitting there. And so the spotlight would be like right here, and then everything else is kind of faint and you see the writing. And yeah, It's one of my favorite pieces, and the title is Pirate Station. Yeah, I like the way that like all of these are kind of seem like little drawings, like somebody just had to do it specifically. It's like they're showing like a little gallery. It's like, basically, it's just like over the past 10 years, I've been like figuring out how to use materials to make replications, I guess, of really old surfaces. And, you know, just walking around anywhere in New York or, you know, any cities that I've been to, like, you get inspiration from what the different weathers do to different areas. It's pretty similar. I think it's a dialogue that exists pretty much anywhere in the world with, you know, just deterioration. But then you add the human mark making to it because people want to leave their mark behind somehow. Whether it's like through like, you know, writing on the wall or somebody just like having an accident and crashing against the wall and leaving a mark by accident, you know that humans were around. And that with the combination of what nature does to surfaces, I find beauty in that. That's kind of like the basis for my work, the basis of the study of my work. I kind of look at the work like as having an anthropological basis, kind of like each piece could have like a certain sentiment to study. Not everybody looks at what I do as art or like what the movement is about as art. So naturally the city wants to clean it up. But there's always going to exist some aspect of, you know, writing and bombing and stuff. As far as like my interpretation of it, I don't know where my work is going to go. I mean, that'll just happen pretty much on its own. But I think I'll always have an interest to go back and inspect the walls, you know. Like I said before, I think that it reveals a lot about our society and about people living in certain areas, you know. Sort of a social study, really. But the future, I can't tell. I don't know.
That drew me to this city are both the intensity and the harshness. When I was leaving Florida, there were a few places that I was gonna live, but none of them was like dirty enough or loud enough. They didn't have the intensity that I knew that I needed. I wanted to come to some place that felt like the center of the world. I started working outside and I didn't have a name for a while. My ex-boyfriend had this dream. He was like, oh, I had this dream that you were a tagger and that you wrote Swoon and that we were like, you know, running from the police or something, but all I could think about was what a beautiful name that was. When I draw portraits, I'm really trying to kind of capture something really essential about that person, like something that I just love, that I have seen in some moment or some gesture or whatever. Like there'll just be something that totally obsesses me and I have to figure out what that is, and drawing is kind of a way to connect with that. So I sort of try to make portraits that are like me kind of connecting with this subject and then to place those out into the city so that people can sort of witness that moment of connection and sort of have it for themselves. I did the first of a series of these little peepholes that I've sort of started working on, which are like, I kind of make a tiny little, or basically I make a big scene in like my room. I set up a kind of a strange scene and then I photograph it. And then I put it in these little slide viewers and put it in construction fencing so you like look through the hole. And that one, it was like the first one I did. It's right near my house. I was just kind of going back to check on it, like, you know, see if it's holding up and stuff. And this woman stopped me and she told me the craziest story. I like hugged this woman in the middle of the street after she told me this story, a total stranger. She was like, basically she said that the whole neighborhood started to call that piece of The Secret, and that they all kind of got to know each other because they would like come around and see it. And she basically said that there was this guy who is a little simple, and so he doesn't really leave the block, and that he was the one that found it, and that he kind of felt like it was his thing because he had found it. And so he would kind of take everyone over to it. And she just said that it gave the whole block like this kind of magical feeling for a little while it was there. It was really sweet. I moved here to go to school, and I really didn't think I was gonna stay that long. I didn't even think I was gonna stay at the school I was at, because I like to travel, so I thought I wanted to move around. But then I just loved New York. And I've traveled a lot in the past couple years, and I kind of can't imagine living anywhere else.
Trial for second-degree manslaughter for shooting an unarmed man whose body was It was during an undercover race.
I've always really had the sense of the way that people store things inside their bodies, and the way that everything that you've ever seen or done is a part of you, you know? And I felt like, in a way, if I could somehow draw that, if I could somehow almost make like an x-ray of, maybe it's just your experiences in that day, maybe it's just what you walked past that day, or maybe it's a deeper story that's kind of like somewhere in there for the telling. Whenever I draw something that's like kind of straight up, just that's what it is, it's usually because whatever image I'm working from was so complete and so like, for me, just like already in place, that I sort of wanted to just like draw it for what it was. I just took a picture of these people in a park in Buenos Aires. I take a lot of pictures as reference. Not my drawing, but just the image itself reminds me of Da Vinci's cartoon of the Holy Family. Like, there's like this amazing woman, and then there's like all her boys kind of all around her. It's a kind of a cool thing. They buy this corn and feed it to the birds. I feel like that's, like, you kind of wouldn't see that in the city. People like, this is like what they're doing. They're like, let's go to the park and feed the pigeons. The best is always trying to explain it to my dad. My dad basically really deeply understands, but he also kind of tries to be tough with me. Every like year or so, we get into this like total grappling conversation, and it was really hard at first because he was really like, what are you doing? Why are you not doing things the prescribed route? Why are you saying no to like crazy amounts of money from such and such corporation? Why are you like, what are you doing? Like, convince me that this makes sense. But it often comes down to this total gut thing of like, I just know, I swear to God, in 6 months, it's totally gonna make sense. This madness, it's gonna be for my first solo show, coming up in a month.
Is this everything you ever thought a solo show would?
It's a little more than I thought a solo show would be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I ever. Yeah, I don't know that I ever imagined getting into a project like this exactly. But then, I guess I started to do shows and I started to sort of build a little and build a little. And then Jeffrey Deitch was like, hey, why don't you propose me a project? You know, and he kind of like said the word project, which I guess is the key word there. And I just was like, oh, and sort of had a little spaz moment. And then it just kind of grew and grew. And like, I don't know. I've never worked on something this scale. Some things I just sort of did what I could, you know? I mean, and I came way, way short of where I had planned, but I had planned like kind of insane, so I still feel like this is like bigger than anything I've ever done by a lot. This was like the only time I've ever gotten to the point where like there would be moments when I just had nothing and I would just have to go to sleep. And that room back there with all the tissue paper hanging had like a stack of beanbags and a packing blanket, and I would just fucking sleep for like an hour a day, like a couple times a day. And I would just get to this point where I'd be like, I can't think, I have nothing to say, I have nothing to give, I have nothing. Yeah, I think my thinking was able to like make a jump from the two-dimensional to thinking spatially and thinking about like environments and movement and kind of like, yeah, it's like I felt literally like a turtle growing to the size of its tank. Like I was given a bigger space and my brain grew. The fucking opening was so intense. The crowd surfed Grand Street. I just like ran into the crowd and I was just like screaming and just like letting it go. And then at some point, like I said, my friends like threw me up and I'm like out like this, like just looking at the skyline of Grand Street, like, is this happening? And all the hands just like passed me around. It was so surreal and so intense.
I want a painting to look the way music sounds. I want the viewer to get lost in the painting the way they get lost in a good song. And this is my office over here. It's kind of the center. This is the epicenter right here, the nucleus. So these are like these pieces that I did in my, my early street pieces. These are from 1990, 91, 92. Yeah, this is all early 90s. When I was in Puerto Rico, I was about 13, and I saw Star Wars on PBS out there. And like the second day after I saw it, like I just started like bombing like my aunt's chicken houses and like going down to the river and like painting on the boulders and like just tagging like my name. And then I came to Chicago and I just started going bananas out here. I remember vividly like I was 14 and I was in high school and my mom just sat me down and she it was serious as a heart attack. She was like, "What do you want to do when you get out of high school, when you grow up?" And I was like, "I want to be an artist." And she's like, "Well, that's nice." She's like, "Maybe you could think about taking some business classes to kind of fall back on." That made me realize like, I really want to be an artist. Like I really want to do my thing. And from that point on, like I honestly, I've never taken my focus off of it. I've never thought about anything else. I've always maintained that focus ever since I was really young. I remember even when I was like 18, when I started getting commissions, and I would always think like, what is it gonna look like 20 years from now, and what are people gonna think about my work 20 years from now? I was really into like contemporary art and painters and what was going on in New York. I really loved the whole like abstract movement from the 80s with Julian Schnabel, and I was really into that. And I just slowly started evolving, like doing like large scale abstract paintings on walls. I kind of got bored of like bombing right away, and I wanted to start doing like these like monumental pieces in Chicago, and I kind of got well known for doing big outdoor pieces. To tell you the truth, man, a lot of it had to do with like, me being short, that I wanted to like make like these monumental big pieces. This is about the time that I met Ram LZ and I met Lee and Futura. And even at the time, like, Futura like was really kind of gave me some samples on how like he used the can and how he used like a straight tip to make some thin lines, and so I started incorporating that in a lot of my pieces. My work has always been really two-dimensional. I've never been kind of a realistic painter, but that's how I always added texture onto it, so I can have it kind of, have some texture on the wall and, really showing that it's a painting and not just, a graph piece. I just slowly started evolving, like doing like large-scale abstract paintings on walls. Everyone wants to create their own identity, and like that was really important for me. So that's why I started using acrylic on a wall. And then, from there, I just kind of went just completely abstract and just kind of blowing it out and just, just kind of doing my own thing. That really didn't make much sense back then, but, now I see, played a big part in my work now. Cool. Graph in hip hop just got so redundant and so repetitious that it just started boring me. And I needed something else. I needed to kind of push myself more. I'm just being critical, man. I'm being critical because I'm critical of myself, of my own work, and I think that you need to be critical in order to push something. I think you need to be critical in order to actually make somebody be more innovative. I'm really blessed and like fortunate to be part of like hip hop culture in Chicago at that early time. I like holding on to my history. I don't have to live it though. I don't have to walk in the shoes every single day. It's part of my history, it's tattooed on my body, it's part of who I am. I'm not trying to capture those memories. You know, I have that shit in my head and I have that shit on photos, and it's like, I'm not trying to relay that on canvas. That's what kind of bogged a lot of people down in Chicago, is that they just, you know, they were so hardcore and they wanted to just keep to painting. People kept saying that it's not about the money and it's about being true to yourself, but at the same time, you know, that's what's so hypocritical about hip hop. That's what kills me. It's like, then you got guys trying to like market t-shirts, marketing, you know, fuck, I've seen fucking panties. You know, it's like, and what kills me is like, and these are the people that are just like, no, I'm so real and I'm keeping to this and I'm doing trainings, I'm doing that, but yet they have a website trying to sell, like, you know, their product. I'm a business person, I respect that, and I'm not knocking it at all, but there's a fine line where it's like, I mean, I remember when I got offered, when I was 23, I got offered to do a line of t-shirts for the NBA, and I said no. I got offered a lot of money, but the thing is, I wanted my paintings to end up in museums. I didn't want them to end up in Kmart. That's the bottom line. This is only a third of what the actual painting is. The actual piece is 60 feet long. I made the piece so it can be exhibited and as either one piece or it can be exhibited three separate ways. I like keeping the concept of like making the paintings really two-dimensional, but having that extra layer and that extra effect. And all these glass beads are all put on by hand. You know, a lot of these are actually kind of taken from like, you know, putting a track into the recording studio on the computer and just seeing like how, you know, how the bars relate to the music and to the sound and the space between them. And then sometimes I just kind of just take that and I put it onto the canvas. It's probably like one of my most ambitious projects, and I mean, financially, it was just like, I mean, it just cost so much money just to produce. We just kind of really believed in it and like, you know, invested all of our time and money into it. No risk, no rewards.
You ever thought you were gonna have one of these things?
Yeah, when I was 14.
Living in the limelight, the universal dream for those who wish to see. Those who wish to be must put aside the alienation. Get on with the fascination, the real relation. I'm making a drawing about communication. It's a bunch of hands throwing signs of peace, power, love, freedom, and rock and stuff. And then it sort of segued into thinking about how the elections in Ukraine that just happened, where there was just massive fraud, including poisoning and death threats and all this kind of stuff. And I wanted to convey that feeling of what hands would be saying in the hopes of, you know, attaining that thing, and that nebulous thing being this loaded kind of concept of freedom. I grew up in Baltimore in the suburbs. My parents immigrated to America from Ukraine back in World War II, and so they tried to raise my brother Kima and myself as in the most perfect utopiarian, utoporific environment, which pretty much was like a big slice of Wonder Bread with, I can't believe it's not butter spread across it. Yeah, it was pretty fun growing up in Baltimore with being called Kami. That was my nickname, Kami. I had to always justify how I'm not a communist because Ukraine is not Russia and that the Soviet Union is not equivalent to Russia. And I got really alienated within my American school system. Oh, look at this. Sands Through the Hourglass, that was the theme of our yearbook that year. So for the ladies, we had to wear these like gnarly pieces of velvet that they pinned behind us that are supposed to look like gnarly pieces of velvet. I don't understand like what this look is. Like, where do you see it? It doesn't take much to like realize the suburbs are bunk and that that kind of utopia is bunk. So luckily I was able to see that at a very early age. I got turned on to punk rock and new wave and revolution. I had the best older brother ever. I still have the best older brother ever. He was the greatest influence of my life. He was like, no sister of mine is gonna listen to Top 40. And so he bought me Back in Black when I was in like 4th grade. And then he would turn me on to music, and I started really liking all the music that he liked. And so much of the music I listen to now is from the records that I have of his and the ones that I've had to like go and find again. The self-help, go for it kind of metal, you know, that's the kind that's not really metal. The kind that's listened to by kids like me in their parents' basement when they're 12.
Maya listens to like lowest common denominator rock, like, you know, Styx, Saga.
Love me some Saga.
Anything that's kind of like middle of the road 70s guitar rock is like
Noodly, like proggy. I like Yes.
Yeah,
a
you like
lot.
obscure stuff, but you also like really like common stuff. Show us your tits rock. Triumph.
So this is how I write music, is by painting. You know, like, that's how my work makes sense to me, is this is all the music coming out because I don't have it in me to perform in front of people or something, and I don't know. I title my work as if I'm writing the title to a song all the time, about 40,000 times a day. That's like, okay, is that a band name, a song title, or an album title? Because titling my work, writing about my work, talking about my work is pretty much the most frustrating and harrowing part of it, because this is how I'm communicating. Like, if I knew how to communicate better verbally, I'd be a talker, a professional talker, or a professional word craftsmith now. At the end of this song, your laser head cleaner will be effectively removed of all dust and fingerprints. This is a good piece that's like a song. You want me to put it like there or something? There's this DVD head cleaner that a friend of mine and I were just sitting there one evening, like watching, sort of zoning out on it, and this image came into my head. It felt like little Walt Disney birds were landing on the windowsill, and the whole story evolved between the two of us of like there being a gingerbread house, and then all the animals come and gather and nibble, and they're all peaceful and happy.
Except for the owner of the gingerbread house, maybe.
No, I think the animals are the proprietors of the gingerbread. No, maybe the blue cube is. With insufficient tact, one must put up barriers to keep oneself intact. I just create my own reality. I believe that if I see things, if I see myself being oppressed, or if I see myself being judged or misunderstood, then I sort of try to shift gears in my head and understand how it fits into my own utopia. That started in San Francisco when I lived in the Castro, and there was like the rainbow flag embodying all people everywhere, and unfortunately that meant that I was called like a breeder by, you know, diehard gay men that didn't like a woman living in their neighborhood and stuff. So I was like, rad, the rainbow is really for the people who are men and gay, and women that are gay, but it really doesn't necessarily encompass all people. And then I started thinking about it, I'm like, where are the brown people in the rainbow? You know, where are the other shades of beige? Where are the other shades of gray? Where are all the other shades of darkness and lightness that aren't in that part of the prism? So I started making poo-colored rainbows.
Give us a hard question. That's so easy.
What
If Maya was an animal, she would be a metallic dolphin. I mean, that's obvious.
Okay.
Either that or like an Arabian horse, like in the Black Stallion. Yes.
Rad.
I'd go.
Dude, can I just say, the first time I ever collaborated with you, you painted a unicorn with its head chopped off. Dude, I was like, I can't even begin to comprehend that shit. Like, how am I supposed to collaborate with that? No, I'm just kidding. I really liked it.
Collaborating frees you up completely from having this sense of ownership over something. Like you try things that you wouldn't otherwise. You like call and respond off of what the other people are doing. You can you get inspired by something, like somebody's using a color of paint and like you steal it from them and you use it too and they do it back. And then when you're done, you step back and like everybody owns it, nobody owns it, you know? Even when I'm working on my own, I'm collaborating. I'm like playing off of one thing from the next and building off myself. So I guess it's just trying to find a family too and find, you know, a sense of home amongst people. Like I can't play in a band, so at least I get to make art with people. The only advice that I ever give anybody is to just work with the people that you love and that you want to advocate and that respect you, and you have a mutually beneficial situation that in the best perfect world completely is off of this, even out of the system of money, you know, because you're just working with one another out of love and out of a necessity to make something together, you know? And only work for the people you love. And don't ever put yourself in any kind of exploitive situations that you're doing it for the money. Do it because you support and advocate that thing. Every dollar that you spend is a pretty political act. It's your voice through your money is far more impactful in the greater scheme of things than any vote you'll ever cast. So you may as well be productive in creating your utopia and your sense of success. I don't have a grand plan, you know, I don't know if I should, but then at the same time I think it sort of defeats the purpose of enjoying life. I did my best.
So, why do you ride a bike?
Cause. Cars.
Grand Ferry Plaza Park. Lovely spring day. Get out my chariot, go for a ride. Initially, I think it was an outlet. It was a way of letting off some steam or releasing a lot of energy that I just have in me, and that's why I took up dancing to begin with. But I've always been painting, drawing, because my mom influenced me. She was a painter, and a lot of music and art is in my family, so I just kind of gravitated to it. I just felt the need to, like I said, to facilitate my urges to just get up and get nasty, get loose. Everybody was doing it too. Everybody was writing. It was just second nature to dance or promote your works on the walls. And we just did for fun. That's what we did. My studies began with Dondi White and Ramelzi. That's when my studies began, really. They pushed the boundaries of graph. So I learned from that, and then moved to California. I kind of like became a hermit of sorts, you know. I met some artists, this kid named Carl Knapp, who was studying sacred geometry, and you know, Leonardo da Vinci's work, and I was just he was breaking it down to me, you know. So I was just like, yo, this is crazy. This is some shit beneath the skin, you know. Like you see Virgin of the Rocks, you know, and you're like, yo, is it really what it looks like, or is there something behind it that's peering out from behind the layers of the paintings? Things that exist that can't be seen in the naked eye, cellular formations, chlorophyll pods, and pollen, seed pods, and all kinds of things that really look dope geometrically. The building blocks of life, you know. I mean, that's when it kind of sparked me to like look at things in their true meaning, their true spiritual form, and that's what I paint. You know, that's what I try to draw out. I think the gods of the creation speaks to me more than anything. I think like the imagery and all the things that come out, thought processes in my head that come out are just like based on intuitive flow, intuitive thought, or something that just lights up in the back of my mind. I'm like, boom, you're supposed to paint that. So that's why I've been stressing the fact that I believe that humans already have this symbology or symbolism built in their DNA. They understand it deep within, you know, and that's where it comes from. I mean, like, I guess I work through it as a vehicle to something bigger, something greater than myself, you know. So. These are the sentinels, man. 7 sentinels. A lot of these are pieces from previous paintings and whatnot. Like this is the Metatron right here. He's the voice of God. He's Pi. He represents Pi. And this is the Lord of the Underworld. Originally, he would be Lord Midas, but Ramelzi stole him from me, so he's not Lord Midas anymore. He's like more of a necrophiliac. This is Bacchus, the way of the drunk, the drunken monkey. That's one of my dimension. This is what we know as universal, as the all being, all sounding Om. This is the celestial watcher who is awaiting the mothership and is hiding from the Draconians. He's gonna let me know when they come, and the reptilians want to eat your legs. He'll definitely let me know, and I'll let you know. This is the cyclic totem. This is the 3 stages of life in man. That's basically, in a nutshell, that's what these represent. That hurt?
It was in a good way.
Hip hop is at its best when it stays on the ground. You know what I'm saying? That's where it gets its raw energy, and that's what it feeds on. It feeds on raw expression. Yeah, it saved my life, definitely. I think we're connecting. I think people are starting to connect more and more, especially artists that I've been around with for the past few years. Yeah, I see a lot more Renaissance men coming out of the closet, like picking up the foundations. The cats I run with, yeah, all of them. David Ellis, Ease, Bro, all those cats are getting into some deeper meaning shit, you know, trying to push the boundaries and stuff. I can't really speak for the masses, but for a small group, collective of artists that I know, yeah, a lot of cats are just opening their eyes and minds. Tomorrow's another day, right?
I'm a cowboy.
Let's turn here to look at. How you doing? Do you mind if I do something on it? I'll show you, look, this image. It's a marvelous lady. You like it? It's nice. She's half naked. It's what is paper and glue. Yeah, you let me? Thanks. Another time. What I came up with, the concept is to go to see people and tell them, look, do you mind if I can paint the wall the way I want it, and you don't have to pay for it. And the guy usually, look at me and laugh and just, they're probably the first idiot in New York who wants to do something for free. Before to create that image, I'm creating the whole storyboard because I used to work in film industry and I used to be very much in love with reading a script and creating some different location. So the exciting things for me, it's not the final piece, it's where I'm going to put the piece. I always like the street and interactive with what's surrounding me, and I keep doing it. Using the street is not about just creating an art piece. Using the street is like this big front door. The guy gave me the whole wall. I wanted to keep it like green and everything and all the tag all around. I wanted to do like even messy, like if it was there for at least 10 years. And the whole building becomes like one. I just think the door himself is first incredible, and my piece is just something I put it on it. But the door with all the rusty scene going like that, and you got the other one came before. Some of there came after, and they put it in different place. A little bit some love for New York doesn't really hurt. I struggled for almost 6-7 years, and I really struggled. I ate shit for about 1.5 years. I lost almost 12 kilos. I used to sleep on the street. I did like really tough stuff, and I thought it was a normal thing to be able to stay in New York City, and actually it's not normal at all. I could have just had a really big problem, and I got lucky. I got really lucky. So it's only 7 years I'm actually not surviving anymore, but I'm living on what I'm actually like it to do it. I would never tell to anybody I'm a writer. I respect them, I admire them I try to be in touch as many of them who actually, they do respect me big time, especially in New York. It's just a different things. I'm more interested to do an interaction with object, or like if is it here some writing or some tag, it is an interaction. If you look at this one, it is an interaction with the garbage. So it's what's challenged me. It's not about me trying to take as much as different location. It's not my name, because the name doesn't appear. It's the design himself. All the time, instead to put my tag in as big as I can, I try to put it on the other side. So I'm just there, parts to the rest of the sticker.
Yeah, I think that when I started to do stuff, my stuff was way too clean, it was way too big, and some of them was illegal, some of them was legal. It was just difficult, you know. They couldn't put me on any class. They couldn't put me on the writer things. They couldn't put me on some advertising. They couldn't put me on the art scene. So basically, I was completely out. Until, for the last 5 years, you got this incredible thing happen where you got a totally new school of how to doing stuff on the street. And now I'm 36 years old, and now you have like at least 500 guy like me on each different country who's actually creating things based to some kind of humoristic or sarcastic or political, and I can name as many as you wanted. But you know, I got lucky to now be part of that school. Like this one is kind of cool because I did the whole piece and he climbed all the way and he did the whole tag. It's just a fresh one. Yeah, so you see, he could have just like, boom, destroy. That's the other one too. He could have just like destroyed it, and he did such a great consideration to understand what I was doing. And he got these gates, and instead to go over his own tag, I actually went exactly when he's starting. So you can see the guy all the way on his knees and tagging and doing the whole, going like that, and filling up the whole thing. So it's almost like me catching a moment. So actually you can go up, climb on top, tagging the rest of the thing, jumping like that, and keep starting another one. But it's such a great thing with the metal thing, the door, and you got the feet going like that, and you keep doing it. Me, I'm more like the guy who creating this motion. And I'm glad you understand the concept of what I'm doing and the kind of different.
I don't know if I understood it, but I like it. Okay, being a graffiti artist yourself, do you see this as interaction or going on?
I was never a street bombing kind of cat. I like trains, and if you did something like that on top of a piece on the train, yeah, I would take that as a violation. But down here in Soho, as long as I can remember, and I used to come to Henry's studio and the Mud Club and fucking, you remember when they had the Fun Gallery on 10th Street?
Yeah, that was a nice place.
Soho was always interaction between wheat paste posters and street artists. You had the dude who painted the little dogs and the shadow man and tags and layers of shit. There've been a lot of books done of photographs of like peeling posters and tags. I like that kind of shit. You know, if I bombed streets, I would expect people to go over me.
Well, that's the thing. You see, that piece for me, I could have just grabbed the whole wall, painted white, and painting something and be massive. And I just said, fuck it, no. And what I like is actually the guy who went over and he tagged these two things. And it's what's, you know, it's not about me, it's about us.
I mean, they got a rule like throw up can go over a tag and a piece can go over a throw up. Yeah. I don't know where this fits into the scheme of things, but it's obviously a little more evolved than just a tag, so.
That's great. It was nice you passed exactly on the right time. I'm really pleased to meet you.
I just got off a bus from Philly. You know about the $10 Chinese bus?
Right.
Watch out. Even in New York, to have a piece stay for more than 3 months, you know. So I was like, wow, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I was like, wow. So now when the piece disappeared, I'm like, okay, you did your time, you know.
Right. You had to run.
Come on, move on to something else. So now I really wanted to integrate as much as little piece and be a little bit everywhere instead to be like taking like the whole building, the whole size of the building, because it's not my challenge anymore. The city changed, the city will always change. It's just, it's so much life compared to other countries. When you get a country when it's too clean, too framed, you're losing everything. Here you got this freedom. Nobody judges you for the way you look like. You do whatever you wanted. And if you got the guts to do this, the people give you back. Not just the people, the city. the city give you back. And it's only New York.
Everything in my life, business-wise, is growing like out of control around me. That straight meditation, you know, morning meditation to draw these guys. I call these guys that I've been drawing now a couple years every morning rumors. I don't necessarily mean it in a negative like rumor, like, you know, she's dating him or he's dating her or whatever. Did you know that? I mean it more, I don't know, it just is, it's just sort of these internal rumors in my head that I'm thinking about the whole time I'm sketching this stuff. Not this stuff, the same head. When I wake up in the morning, get a coffee, you know, just draw. Used to be more, you know, after coffee all day, still going. But, you know, since then, I've been just entangled with the footwear industry. I'm intermingling into this industry, and I'm really looking at the product like a canvas, you know, like my vehicle for canvas, and it happens to be that there's a whole industry of behind this shit, you know. I'm seeing the footwear industry and seeing billions of shoes, but you know, at the same time, you can do a billion different things with those shoes, and the gallery's the market, you know, for me. The creative spark for me, you know, set super young, you know, 10, 11 years old. Very much influenced by, you know, my grandmother, and she was involved with, you know, like Penske eggs, folk art stuff. I just got involved. Here's a brush, here's some pencils, you know. And I just, you know, buried myself in it. There'd be all this, like, you know, extreme hours worth of detail on these Penske eggs, and it's like there's the expression, right? It's just an egg, but you know, all those hours put into that egg to make that egg, and then people collect those eggs, and there are only a limited amount of eggs, and you know, there's shows about eggs and forums and websites about eggs, and people just bug out about eggs. I draw a lot of comparison there with the sneakers now. It comes down to all that detail that you put in that make people want to collect it and make people, you know, be interested in it and stuff. You know, it's telling a story, and to me it's at that moment where the color influence comes from, or the graphic themes come from, or, you know, just constantly trying to reinvent. One of the key parts that keeps me going, I mean, and the driving force that keeps me going is not knowing. You know, I don't really know what's ahead. I haven't had any experience in a footwear industry at all. So, you know, I don't have any fears about what what I'm getting involved in, or you know, what's ahead for the future. How you doing, man? What's new in here today, man?
The shoes?
Yeah, what came in new?
Well, these came in new Jordans.
Yeah, they
Those
did.
are good.
I'm not endorsing athletes, you know? I'm not in the business of endorsing athletes or trying to make it to the Olympics, you know, and have my logo the biggest there. You know, they're probably thinking about sales. They're probably like, you know, reviewing their trend forecast sheets and being like, you know, green doesn't sell well in, you know, the Asian market, but in, you know, in the North American tri-tips, you know, collegiate colorways seem to be our most powerful force. You know, where I'm not really thinking that way at all. And I think that's why I keep really my personal artwork, my sketchbook, and all my sort of passion that connects to all that. I just keep it away from a very market-based thing, you know? I keep my feet on the ground, enjoy. I don't mind wholesaling my shoes, but I don't want to wholesale my artwork. I think that's something that, at this point, is a real good way to look at it. I haven't yet grasped the idea of wholesaling my artwork. First and foremost, before anything, is my art and being creative and having a creative touch and detail or whatever it might be involved in anything. Now the public or the market or whatever that vehicle is, for me, the footwear, what caught on a wave, what started riding, and I guess I'm just fortunate enough to have a large part of that identity structure in the sneaks. Be creative. Jesus, what if they were just like these shit white leather shoes? I just drew it one day or something, and I met a manufacturer, and he just made this shit white shoe with no detail, but it was a cool shape. And next thing I know, it's my life. I'm like, damn, where's the creative juice in that? I'm already droughted, I'm dead. I can't even put any touches on this or nothing. Like, wow. Then I would have been in conflict. And I think that in due time, I'll be able to express more through other outlets and other mediums. And I'm happy that I haven't exposed any of those yet. They're just like so many other songs I've yet to play.
People don't quite get that. They think you can put anything you want on a billboard, and that's not true. You can't rent a billboard and say anything you want because it is private property. So how come they're allowed to have private property in public space, but then you're not allowed to have free speech on it? It's like an illusion. You ever hang around with people who've lived in communist countries or like the former Soviet Union? They're like, at least we knew. At least we knew that the government controlled speech, and you guys are controlled by these corporations, and you don't even know. Most people don't try to cross the line, so they don't know where the line is, or even that the line exists. With a billboard, it's really about the moment, So, it could be addressing a topic that people will have forgotten in 3 weeks, but they're thinking about, today. So it's almost like a political cartoon, but like when you're just out stealing space, there's nobody there to say, no, that's too much. You know, one of the guys from the billboard company said, look, you know, it's like, when we catch him, he's going to jail. But he's got people looking at billboards. You're in a media-saturated environment constantly, you know, commercials on TV, everywhere, and how people deal with this is they shut down and they don't see them. Once you've figured out, like, who I am, you're going to look at all 20 of those billboards, just making sure one of them, you know, might not be like a Ron English billboard. And then, and what happens is, then you saw the Nissan billboard, and then you know, you saw the Coca-Cola billboard, which you wouldn't have picked up on before because you've kind of conditioned yourself to ignore them. So I think they kind of acknowledge the fact that because I do this, that people actually do look at billboards, but then they can't really go along with it because I'm covering up their clients, and sometimes I'm actually dissing their clients. People think, well, why wouldn't you just want to rent the billboard? Then you don't have to deal with going to jail and everything else. But it's like, you can't rent a billboard and diss McDonald's on it because they get too much money from McDonald's. So they're always going to go with whoever is giving them the most money. I don't mind going to jail for the weekend. I rather enjoy it because it's like a big bull session. And, you know, you start realizing that, like, everybody in here is black and everybody's in here for selling fucking pot, you know, which shouldn't even be a crime. So I think it gives you another, you know, view of your society that a lot of people aren't exposed to. You realize they're criminalizing some behavior that just to keep down a certain class of people. I have a pretty good idea of what's going to piss people off. I think people should have their beliefs challenged. I mean, I think I should have my beliefs challenged. I'm willing to change my idea about something if new information is presented. With Camel, it's like, you know, I think that because there were so many people, you know, like me, protesting their use of a cartoon character to try to, you know, lure children into smoking, that it actually worked, that they finally had to back down from doing that. But I remember, like, I had done one that said smooth character, and it was like a older camel, like, handing out cigarettes to little baby camels, and that was what the graphic that CNN was using during the whole controversy. So, I mean, in a way, you give, like, the visual end of the story. You know, you give them something they can grab hold of and say, if you don't understand what this issue is, he's just made it very simple. A painting is going to have a different function than a billboard because in 50 years somebody's going to still be looking at the painting. So there has to be something there that's going to keep resonating on and on and on. It may just be, you know, the quality of the painting style, or, you know, they may not get a lot of the references, but it still has to have something that holds it together. It made sense that I got in a lot of trouble for doing the billboards, but I was kind of surprised that I can get into so much trouble just for painting, you know, because I've been sued by Disney, I've been sued by King Features, which is Charles Schultz. The ad poster I did for Absinthe, they're being sued by the Van Gogh Foundation, and it's just, boy, I just draw a lot of lawsuits. But it's funny, I mean, I can sit in my studio and get as much trouble as I can get in, like going out on the streets and pasting up billboards. I have a manager, Vicki Hamilton. She used to be like the manager of Guns N' Roses. So one of the people that she tried to hook me up with is Kiss. So she showed them, their people, my stuff, and they were having a tour called Kisstory. So I came up with a body of work. When they looked at that, they said, well, you know, our audience is really younger, like 15-year-old kids, and they really kind of more on explosions or cartoony kind of things, and we really can't use this. And then they sued me. So I don't know. Who knows how that'll all turn out. The whole pop thing, it came out like overnight. I didn't really like pop art, so for some reason I thought, you know, I bet my life would be really different if I painted pop art. And so I just thought, you know what, I'm going to be a pop artist for 10 years, from the year 1990 to the year 2000. Actually, my life was quite different when I changed my style. A lot of people that really liked me hated me, and and blah blah, and vice versa. I realized that it's this language that we all understand. It's almost like the English language, and that once something becomes a pop icon, it becomes part of this visual vocabulary that everybody understands, and that I can say a lot of things that I wouldn't be able to say without using these characters. Every word has a certain meaning behind it, and when you string them together, it takes on another meaning. It's the same way with characters that people understand or things from pop culture that people understand. It's almost like I don't have a style as much as I have like an attitude, and I think the attitude, permeates all the work. If I had to create a profile of people that tend to collect my work, that they do seem to be a lot of very self-made people, and people that just kind of have this attitude like nothing's going to stop them, And I think one of the most interesting things about being an artist is that you kind of get access to these amazing fucking people, and people that I don't know. It just blows my mind sometimes, the people that I've known, and it's because they respond to something in the art. Because they like my art, then I'm allowed into their lives. The weird thing about an artist is, we really do live in a classist society. Right? Maybe a lot of people don't want to recognize that, but it's true. But it's weird. You're like a person without a class when you're an artist. You're not really part of the upper class, but you're really not part of the lower class. You're like you can just float around. You're kind of welcome everywhere, but you're not at home anywhere. Everybody's journey is different. My life has just been complete, like an endurance test. There's something that happened to me when I was a kid. I got in a fight with a guy, and he was like beating the crap out of me. And I thought, you know what? It's like I've lost this fight. I'm about to go down. But before I go down, I'm just going to swing one more time. And the guy hit the ground. Persistence. Take that one more swing, and that may be the one that gets you through,
I was lucky enough to find stenciling, and it sort of suited my personality. It's a long, methodical, sort of planned out approach. The principles of stenciling are essentially the same as screen printing. It's the layer upon layer, and as long as you can kind of think backwards, like lightest color building up to dark. For me, the process is almost as much a part of the piece as the aesthetics of the piece. And again, it kind of goes back to the Baltimore work ethic. Baltimore's such a working class, blue collar town. Having grown up in that environment, I feel like that's sort of what pushes me to do what I do. It's a real direct, hard-working, no bullshit kind of approach, and so I try to sort of carry what I learned in Baltimore to me wherever I go. I went to art college. Part of the way that I paid for my way through college was I kept working at different screen printing shops, and back in high school I taught myself how to screen print. Kind of enjoyed the way that it was, and so I would just get these jobs all throughout college. Turned around and started my own screen printing company. I did work for everyone from Time Warner to Barnes & Noble to pretty dry corporate jobs. Paid the bills, but it was a dry thing, and I just got fed up with it. Sold, threw away, or gave away all my possessions, and then just took one car full of stuff, moved up to San Diego. Obviously I couldn't fit my screen printing press or anything in there, so I just started stenciling. you know, I kind of got it in my head. I was like, you know, I can do the same thing with stenciling that I was doing with screen printing. And I mean, for me, like being able to sit down and like kind of zone out for 100 hours cutting a stencil, like, whereas it's torture for most people, I kind of enjoy it, to be able to carve out like a piece and hold it up and see it. Like, for me, like, that's kind of what I enjoy about it. And I mean, the fact that like I kind of have this remnant of that process in the form of the work is cool. For me, one of the things that's always appealed to stenciling is being able to take like a crude medium like spray paint and try to refine it and to try to tame it in a sense. And use it in a way that is not immediately recognizable as spray paint is something that kind of appeals to me. It's a crude medium, like you have a limited palette, you know, you have limited control. You know, I would guess it's some of the same motivations that drive sort of traditional graffiti artists, of being able to tame it and make it do whatever you want. I mean, it's the same thing that kind of eggs me on for the technical side of things. And you know, I've always sort of enjoyed just kind of reinterpreting whatever it is I see. Originally, like the whole building thing kind of started off as, in a way, me kind of being homesick for the East Coast. I mean, I really appreciate like the East Coast architecture, like the fire escapes and the alleys and just like the history of like the East Coast architecture. So in a way, like it came strictly from like a nostalgia standpoint of producing these things with like a whole series of fire escapes or, you know, or whatever else. And as it's gone on, I mean, I think my work is primarily aesthetic. Like, I'm not trying to get at any sort of, you know, saying. I don't have any agenda when I do it. I just try to make things that essentially look good. Workhorse Collective is, well, up until now, it's been sort of a loose-knit group of just kind of like-minded individuals. And we just show together, do jobs together. Just kind of over the past 5 years, it's sort of grown into graphic design studio to, you know, to do more commercial jobs. Lately, I've been pretty fortunate for finding different commercial jobs. I mean, like I just did a job for Nike. You know, we've done some stuff for Red Bull. Maybe other people would see it as being a little bit different, but for me, like, I don't. You know, I mean, it's all stencils, and I mean, I kind of think of it's like the same way, like when, like if you're in art college or whatever, you have assignments, and they kind of push you to do something else, even if you don't like the assignment. Like, you kind of like the fact that you're learning about something, and that's sort of what I see like the commercial work is doing. And I think your approach carries through to everything that you do. You know, I mean, I think if you're an asshole like in one thing and you start doing business, you're still going to be an asshole. You know, and I think like it's sort of the same thing with art. Like, if you kind of see this sort of common thread, like whether or not it's the work ethic or like how you talk to people or whatever else. And I mean, for me, like, I just enjoy meeting these cats that, like, you know, I'll do a show in the state and go and you get to meet someone that you would never have run into otherwise. And, you know, for me, just trying to find some way to sort of stick around and see what it turns into. I mean, for me, I guess that's like the common thread for business and art. I just try to get up and just do something every day that, you know, feels like it's somewhat creative, that may possibly lead into something else. And I mean, you know, I sort of stumbled into stenciling. It wasn't like I planned it out. You know, just kind of go with the punches and, you know, see where it leads you. But I mean, just do shit.